Hey, welcome everybody to the Talent in Strategy Show on the Success is a Choice Podcasting Network. I'm one of the co-hosts of the show, Jamy Bechler. In with us as usual is Ruston Pierce. Ruston, happy 2023 to you and good morning.
Happy 2023. Hope you had a good Christmas and New Year's.
It was awesome. It was good. And now most of our audience, most of the watchers, the viewers, the listeners are probably getting back to work, or maybe you got a whole weekend, or maybe you're going to be starting work this upcoming week. So wherever you're watching us on YouTube, Rumble, LinkedIn, Facebook, or maybe you're listening to us on the Success is a Choice Podcast Network, we appreciate it. Kindly touch, tap, click, smash the like or the subscribe button. That's one of the best ways that you can share this show and let everybody else, let other people know about it. And it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. As usual, this episode is made possible by our friends over at Affinity Recruiting and Consulting. Find out how they can help you increase your bottom line or advance your mission at affinitytoday.com. Well, Ruston, just like last week, people that tuned in, it was just you and I kind of bantering back and forth, giving some opinions, giving our lists on some various topics. Today, it's going to be similar in that it's just us two. We will be getting to our guests here in the coming weeks. But today, we thought we are going to have a little preview or talk a little bit about some of our thoughts about 2023. So this is going to be kind of fun to do, and we have not talked previous about any of these questions, so it'll be interesting to hear both of our answers. So
after last week, I'm surprised you wanted to do this again.
Well, we're going to try not to offend too many people today. If you tuned in last week, you might have found out that I'm not a fan of dogs, but I am a huge fan of Princess Leia. So there you go. So part of our demographics might be excited about that, and part of our demographics might not be.
That sentence definitely wins random quote of the day.
Absolutely. So we're going to go ahead and get into this with our first kind of talking point. Everybody, 2023, new year, new you. We all know this. Resolutions. Some people are big on resolutions. Some people aren't big on resolutions. Some people think they're goals. Some people, they're just pie in the sky, bucket list type things. But I don't know, Ruston, do you do resolutions, or do you do like John Gordon talks about the one word for the year? Do you do resolutions?
No, I don't really do any of that stuff. I used to think about those things, and it's January 5th. So in a normal year by now, I would have already broken it. It's just not. I'm not a big New Year's person either. Like, I don't stay up and watch the ball drop or whatever else in your city drops. I was only up this year because that was the exact moment Ohio State was missing a field goal. Otherwise I wouldn't have seen anything at New Year's. I haven't watched any of that stuff, and I can't remember the last time I watched a New Year's thing. I did though. On New Year's Day, I was sitting in a church service and felt really convicted about what our sermon was on that day, and it was all about how you schedule out your time and how you prioritize your time, and was very convicted about how I study the Bible, how I prioritize studying the Bible. How I make time for that because I don't, and how I need to make time for that. I have the mindset that it will just happen. And the reality is, like anything else on our calendars, if you don't schedule it, it's not going to happen. And so, probably if there was such a thing as a resolution, it would be that, I'm going to focus time every day and put it in my calendar to study the Bible. And that's probably my focus for this year.
That's a good one. I can't top that. That's the answer. Reading the Bible, studying more of the Bible, that you win the prize. It's hard to be better than that one. I don't like you. I really don't do resolutions, so to speak. I know a lot of people do. This past week, I would go to the YMCA, the gym, to work out, and it's hard to get a machine. Everybody's in there. Everybody is, their resolution is to get into shape, and that's fine. that's part of my goal. Well, that's one of my goals, to get into better shape this year. But a lot of people, it's just a resolution. It's just, hey, this is what I want to do. And then they don't really put a plan together other than, you know what, I'm gonna hit the gym more. And then after a week or maybe 10 days, it's pretty hard. And they stop going because it's hard. But the other thing too, that a lot of people, we sometimes play into this and keep other people from progressing in their goals or their resolutions, is because people don't see the progress as quickly as they would like. And so they give up. Well, I see this all the time. We'll look at a person and be like, oh, they're still fat.
Yeah.
Well, they might have lost 50 pounds. They might have lost 75 pounds, or whatever. They might have done a lot, but we still look at where they are right now and not look at where they've come from, and that's the same way. You coach for a long time, Ruston, or I coached. We have a lot of people in the business world. You may judge someone right now where they're at,
Yeah.
or you might compare them to yourself, but you forget where they've come from. You forget maybe last year at this point, they were an alcoholic. Maybe last year at this point, they had a terrible attitude, and they still don't have a great attitude, but it's so much better. And so sometimes we don't cut people slack. And that's the same way with going to the gym. I'm amazed at, just there's so many people that kind of look funny at, well, why are you in here? Or, you're not wearing the right clothes, or you're still too big, in the gym. And man, you need to be high-fiving and fist bumping some of those people just for getting in there, getting in the gym. So New Year's resolutions, let's kind of go into, I think maybe where you and I both have a similar feeling. It's maybe not New Year's resolutions, but our goals.
Mm-hmm.
Goals have a little bit more substance. Resolutions is kind of like all flash, no cash, type of speak. Goals, personal, professional goals. I assume that you have a bunch. Do you have goals, personal, professional? You can talk about either one, both of them, whichever you want to talk about.
Yeah, let's do both, and I'll start with personal. If you want, we can bounce back and forth.
Yeah.
Um, so I was a coach for a long time. Um, I have an 11-year-old son who has started moving into a new season of life where he's really, really aggressively wanting to become a great player. He plays football, basketball, and baseball. Probably baseball is his first love. And so I coached baseball for 12, 13 years, both at the high school and collegiate level, and haven't coached baseball in several years now. And because of my background, I've been asked to come back into coaching and to coach his team. He plays for a pretty good select team, and there are a lot of kids on that team that want to get better and want to grow, and the team was formed for all the right reasons. And so it's been neat to jump back into it. But when I was coaching, I always wanted to be on the cutting edge. I always wanted to be the team that was doing stuff that might be a little controversial, might be a little different. I've always kind of been a disruptor when it comes to my leadership style. I always want to find the new, better way of doing things, so long as it was data proven. And so, baseball has changed over the last 5 to 10 years. There's a lot more data. There's a lot more analytics. I was probably doing some of that before it was cool. And, now it has morphed into something that is just unbelievable. And so kind of my personal goal for this year is I want to learn a whole lot more about the science of baseball and learn a whole lot more about the analytics and the thought processes, but not just the analytics, but how do they convey to 11-year-olds? How do they convey to 12-year-olds? How do you explain those things in such a way that they understand it, they can comprehend it, and then they can go execute it? So it's been a lot of fun. I've already been spending a lot of time reading and watching videos and kind of just taking in a bunch of information. It's unbelievable how much is out there. It's kind of almost hard to sort through all of it. But it's for me personally, my goal this year is to kind of reinvent myself as a coach and reinvent my thought processes around the science of baseball.
Well, that is, I like that. You might want to watch some of the old Fred McGriff. Is it Fred McGriff that had the videos?
Okay, that is bizarre that you brought that up. So this morning I posted on social that I was looking for really good pitching mechanics videos, new scientific, and somebody posted the Tom Amansky, Fred McGriff videos from 20 something years ago.
Yeah, I
And I'm
remember
like,
like watching This Week in Baseball. Was it with
yeah,
Mel Allen and what was Johnny Bench? What did Johnny Bench do? Did he do This Week in Baseball also? Or
yeah, I think so.
so I remember watching those on Saturday mornings, and yeah, Tom Amansky and Fred McGriff, and yeah,
Hmm.
those videos would come on. That's not quite disrupting. That's not quite new
Well,
school that
not
you're
to
talking
mention, I
about.
said specifically I wanted pitching mechanic
Yeah.
videos, and they sent me Fred McGriff.
Hey, throwing is throwing. You know what? No. Um, my personal goal would be very similar to a lot of people's out there. I want to lose some weight. I want to get into better shape. And I went through a stretch where in 1 year last year, I lost 40 pounds. And, you know, I'm still not down to my playing weight. But then came August. August and September are my two busiest months of the year. I'm traveling. I spent more time in a hotel room in August than I did in my own bed. That's when schools are starting. So I'm always out at a different school or talking with a different team every day, pretty much. Well, that was the first month where I kind of got off my routine of what I was eating, got off the routine of working out, controlling my workouts, and it became habit forming. That and so I gained a little bit of that weight back, and so that's disappointing. And so for the last since August, I've been struggling. Um, I certainly didn't gain all that weight back, but I gained a lot of or gained some of that weight back. And so I've got to this week I started back just like everybody else, but I started back, hey, I'm going to work out these times. We're trying to eat or take away these foods. Everybody out there knows their sucker food or knows their Achilles heel when it comes to food. Or maybe you eat late at night, or maybe like for me, when you're traveling, you fool yourself into always saying Chick-fil-A is healthy. Chick-fil-A
Right.
is healthy. Well,
It's
it's
peanut
not.
oil. It's not real grease.
Yeah, yeah. It's not healthy. It just might not be as bad as McDonald's or Burger King, but it's not
Right.
healthy. But we fool ourselves into that thinking. And so I'm getting back on a plan. And so yeah, that's important to me. So that would be my personal goal would be to lose that weight that I gained since August.
I'm amazed that you can even see a place where you can be close to your playing weight. I would need gastric bypass surgery to get near my playing weight.
Well, it depends on what year that was playing. Was it, the last year of playing beer league softball? Maybe that's my playing weight.
I'm
Uh,
there for that one.
yeah.
I can achieve that.
But one of the things about goals is, it's not just a resolution. It's not just something you want. It's something, hey, do I have a plan for this? So for instance, for me, one of my major Achilles heel, I don't want to stop traveling or stop doing work that makes me money. That's not a good option. But, maybe I don't eat after 9 o'clock at night. If that's my main thing. Now, one of the problems with me, and I've got a lot of faults, as people know, but I stay up late. I stay up real late. And so 9 o'clock to me is not, or when I stay up late, it's easy for me to go to the fridge or the cupboard and pick out something
Hmm.
when everyone else is asleep. You're kind of bored or whatever to pass the time, even though you're still working. And so that's one of those things I got to cut out. There's certain foods I know I have to cut out that are my Achilles heel, and I know I can do without. When I started this diet or started this lifestyle, and lost the 40 pounds, I didn't have a cheeseburger for that whole year. Um, there's certain things you cut out, and I was able to cut out and stay pretty disciplined, and I've got to get back to that.
Yeah, I'm bad about the late night thing too. Especially I like to stay. I love football. I'll watch any football anywhere, anytime. And there's been so much of it on with the bowl season and NFL, and When you're sitting up late watching a game and there was a recent Costco run and there's just, bulk everything in the cabinet. So difficult not to go partake.
Absolutely. So, professional goals. Do you have any professional goals for the year?
Yeah. I, my family is at a really neat season of life. My oldest daughter is in all kinds of productions and does a lot of fun things and is about to start driving here pretty soon. And like I said, one of my sons is playing anything with a ball every chance he gets. Our other son is really into all kinds of engineering, building, drums, archery. He plays a little football. Does anything and everything under the sun that is different than his twin. And then my youngest daughter is a basketball, softball kid. So when you take all those different things I just said and lay them out on a calendar, all of a sudden your calendar is extremely full. But I want to be able to be a part of all those things. So, my kind of professional goal for the year is that my calendar is going to be my friend, and I'm going to manage my time really, really well. Make sure that I script everything out, really think through where and when I'm going. Cause I'm like you, I travel a lot too. And make sure that I'm able to be involved as much as I can. My professional goal is that I'm going to manage my time so I can better care for others and invest in others.
Very good. We're trying to scale up in our business and Bechler Leadership. We're trying to do more things, and we're trying to put out podcasts 7 days a week, or at least something 7 days a week on our audio channel. But we've got a couple additional books. One is directly geared at for softball that we're going to be putting out. It's a fictional book about teammates, how to be a great teammate. And we're also looking at putting out a fictional book for parents, both for parents and for coaches. Coaches, how do you work with parents? Parents, how can you be a productive member of a program or part of a culture that leads and helps that team move forward? And so those are a couple things that we're doing. And we're also revamping our online program, our online curriculum, making it better and adding to it. So lots of things on the upcoming year.
A parenting book in athletics is always needed. I never cease to be amazed. I've got several kids playing. I'm on both sides of the fence. Sometimes I'm a parent, sometimes I'm a coach. All the time I see craziness. It's just mind blowing. I have a 9-year-old daughter. The things that I hear parents of 9-year-old girls say from the stands during a softball game is just mind blowing.
Yep. And parents, for the most part, parents don't truly understand that they're part of the culture and they're part of that program. Now they think they're part of the program. They know they're part of the program from one standpoint, but it's a selfish standpoint. They
Yeah.
don't truly understand that they can actually, the same things they're complaining about, they actually can make that stuff actually worse, oftentimes by the way that they're acting about it or the way they're going about stuff. And so parents have to see the whole forest and not just their tree. And oftentimes when you see the whole forest, your tree is going to get better. Your tree is going to be more healthier, stronger, taller, whatever the bad analogy you want to use. In the same way, coaches have to understand that parents are part of the program, whether you like that or not. And oftentimes coaches avoid parents. And when you avoid something, it creates a void. And that void is never filled with what you want it to be filled with. And so both sides have to do a little bit better job of working together and finding win-win solutions, as opposed to just seeing their tree and not the whole forest.
I'm a big believer that high school coaches have to get involved in the local youth programs. Not so much to build their program, but to keep the parents in check and start training them earlier how they should behave. Because what will happen, and we watch this, I watch this live all the time. If the I'll give you a great example. My assistant this fall was a female, and so she and I were in the dugout one night, and we're playing this team, and the other team's parents were just off the rails. They were all screaming the whole time. I mean, I was getting anxious, and I wasn't even with them. I was in the other dugout. And we stood there at one point during the game and looked around the field at the body language. These are 9-year-old girls. Looked around the field at the body language of those girls and said, that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one. Those 5 will never play again after this year. And, if I'm a high school coach, and I don't know if you're seeing it where you are, but we're definitely seeing it here in Tennessee. Numbers are dissipating in high school athletics. And I 100% attribute it to 9, 10, 11-year-olds who are fed up with getting screamed at and dealing with the parent after the game, dealing with the parent sometimes during the game, and they just quit. And the high school coach is getting this small handful of players to cultivate and build because there just isn't anybody else coming out. And I think the only way they're going to be able to combat that is if they do come get involved in the local youth leagues and start holding people accountable to this is how we handle things, because it's not getting better.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would agree with you 100% on that. What do you want to learn in 2023? Is there a project that you're excited about doing, or a new skill, or something that you would like to learn?
I want to learn how to read again. I haven't made time to read anything, and I literally can't remember the last time I read a book. I cannot remember. I sat down last night and tried to think of it. Went through my bookshelves trying to identify it and go, yeah, that was the one. I cannot remember the last time I read a book. And so the first one I'm going to do is this. It's Leadership Not by the Book by David Green. David Green, for those who don't know, David Green was the CEO of Hobby Lobby. He is a disruptor. The things that they did not make sense, but they made billions. And I've said it before, I'm kind of a disruptor. I think the way he thinks. And so I've had multiple people tell me that I have to read this book. And so that is my one thing I'm going to learn. I'm going to learn how to read again.
That's awesome. That's readers are readers. I've heard that a lot. And you got to fill your brain with the good stuff and keep developing. I have something I would like to learn that's probably more of a bucket list and a wish list and more of a resolution where there's not a lot of substance to it, because I'm not sure I'm going to actually take the plunge, but I would like to learn jujitsu. That's the martial art, for those that aren't familiar with. That's the martial art that's more like grappling, wrestling. It's not necessarily, it's not the striking type martial arts. It's the submission type. It's the self-defense type more so. And so, I would
have
actually
so many sitcom scenes flashing through my head right now.
I would like to learn that along with my son. I think that would be a great thing to learn, not that he gets bullied, but in this world of bullying, in this world of violence, to be quite honest, knowing how to diffuse a situation without, hurting somebody or punching somebody, but, essentially holding somebody, or, I think police forces should do that. I know I'm going further on this, but I think police should be taught that when they're going against, somebody that's trying to take them down, that doesn't care, or that's on drugs, where are the leverage points, where are the pressure points, that kind of stuff, as opposed to just use your gun or use your fists. And so, yeah, I would like to learn that. I'm not sure though that I'm actually going to pull the trigger on that.
I would like to see some video footage of Jalen making you tap out.
Well, that doesn't exist, but one of these days, yeah, I would like to see both of us do that. That would be fun. But, I'm getting old, and, it doesn't take much for me to, feel like an 80-year-old when I wake up in the morning. So I'm not sure I'm ready to take that on, but every time I listen to Joe Rogan or watch his podcast. He talks a lot about jujitsu. And so I'm always inspired
Yeah.
by him. Not inspired enough to actually go out and take a class, but inspired enough to actually remember that that's something I'd like to do. All right. Who do you want to meet personally? Not necessarily become BFFs, though I'm sure, you would love to become BFFs with somebody famous or somebody personally, but who would you just like to meet in 2023?
I want to meet David Green. So for the people who don't know about Hobby Lobby, look up sometime David Green and philanthropically what he does and what Hobby Lobby has done for this country. It's pretty incredible. The philanthropic things that David Green has done all over this country for years and years and years using Hobby Lobby profit, it's transformational. And I would just love to sit down, just talk to him and learn what was it that kind of prompted him to think that way? What was it that caused him to want to give away as much as he did? What were the kind of the drivers behind that? I would love to spend some time just getting to know David Green and hearing his thoughts and learning all about everything that how they built this $1 billion company.
Very good. Very good. Who I would like to meet personally. I'm not really into celebrities. A lot of people would say, well, I want to meet this person or this person or this person. I'm not into celebrities whatsoever. I don't mind athletes. We've, you and I being in sports, we've been around a lot of athletes, a lot of coaches, but kind of the one person I think I would like to meet or get to spend a little bit of time with maybe. And this is, this will alienate some of our audience, I'm sure, but I would like to spend some time or meet Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to do that privately, where the cameras aren't on, where he's not having to, put on airs or anything.
Yeah.
And, I've seen some footage of him behind the scenes and he seems like he's pretty much the same all the time, but I'd love just to meet him, get to spend a few minutes with him. Just to kind of get a feel in person for the guy. I think he's pretty interesting. And I know he's polarizing, but I think he's interesting. I'm not saying I'm a fan or not a fan. I just think he's an interesting guy. And he's been the most powerful man in the world. He's been rich. And he thinks he's a great golfer. Maybe that should have been the question. Who would you like to go golfing with? Because I know you like to golf.
When you can buy as many golf courses as you want to, you can profess yourself to be a good golfer.
That's right. That's right. So going further, not necessarily who you'd like to meet, but is there someone you, from a professional standpoint, maybe you would like to work with? And I'm not saying, you're going to leave your job and leave as Affinity.
Yeah.
We're not breaking news here. You're not leaving Affinity Recruiting and Consulting just yet. But is there someone you'd like to work with?
So this will probably be a really weird answer to you. I'm a big believer that you should always be building your network. You should always be reaching out, talking to anybody that you can, never leaving a stone unturned. I don't think there's random conversations. I think every conversation has a purpose.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know who he is, Tony Vitello is the head baseball coach at the University of Tennessee. He is probably the fastest rising star in all of baseball, college or pro. It is rare that a guy would be a second-year head coach and would be asked to be the main color analyst on the Major League Draft on MLB Network. But the reason was because they know Tony Vitello knows everybody and he knows everything about everybody. And so they showed tons of kids in the first round coverage and he knew all of them. But not only did he know all of them, he knew who they had played for. He knew who they were going to be playing for. He knew the coaches they would eventually work with in the minors and in the pros. It's amazing. The man's network is it's obscenely big. And I would want to build a relationship with Tony Vitello and really learn from him and connect with him on the off chance that I ever did decide to go back into coaching, because I guarantee you he knows 100 people right now that are looking. The man knows literally everyone.
Well, you are going back into coaching. And after you watch those Fred Crime Dog McGriff, Tom Amansky videos, you're going to be so versatile in your ability to coach any position.
If we need to make a bunch of relays with 6 or 7 guys across the outfield, Tom Amansky's your man.
Yeah. I've got two answers, because my first answer wasn't probably quite what we were looking for, but my first answer was, who do I want to be on a podcast? And that's kind of working with somebody, but who would I want to be on a podcast? And I've got a number of bucket list people, but I would like Tyler Perry to be on my podcast. And for those of you that don't know Tyler Perry, you might know Medea. He is the character in Medea, dresses like the old grandma. But Tyler Perry is a great rags to riches story. He's very well respected by just about everybody from Atlanta. He acts, he produces, he directs, he does so many things, but he's very well-spoken, very respected, but he's also not somebody, he's somebody that's pretty wise, and he hasn't gotten deep into the, hey, I'm going to say I'm for this candidate politically, or I'm for this issue only because I'm in Hollywood, or I'm only in Atlanta, or, it doesn't matter. He's pretty wise about stuff. And I would love to sit down and talk with him about some issues and see where his thoughts are, because he doesn't give a lot of interviews. So this is totally not something that'll happen, but him. But as far as working with somebody, I would love to work with Bill Belichick in terms of, I do a lot with coaching. I do a lot with athletic departments and teams. I would love to work with Bill Belichick. And the reason I would love to do that is just primarily because nobody knows really what goes on behind the scenes. They are such a tight ship. He runs a tight ship there in New England. I would love to see how things go on a day-to-day basis, because you listen to any of their guys talk in press conferences and it's one-word answers. You listen to him talk, it's one-word answers. He totally controls what he and his team says, and they still do well. I know a lot of people criticize them after Tom Brady left. Well, they're just human now. But they still have a 500 record, or they still have done okay, just not what they used to do. And he's still doing a good job with guys that aren't stars. And so I'd love to see how he handles things behind the scenes.
It's funny you say Tyler Perry. So I used to live near him in Atlanta, and because of my involvement with different nonprofits around Atlanta, I saw a lot of what he did behind the scenes. And one thing people don't know about him is he is extremely philanthropic. He supports all kinds of nonprofits and ministries in Atlanta. And that's one reason why he turns down so many speaking engagements, because a lot of times all they want to talk about is the places that he's poured into his community, and he doesn't talk about that. It's something he does for himself in private, and he is extremely generous to the local community.
Well, if you've only seen his movies, I would actually encourage you, check out his plays, his theatrical, the plays, and you might have to look hard to find them a little bit, but he had almost all of his movies were plays, and they're maybe 2.5, 3 hours long, but those are really funny. If you think the movies are funny, the movies are nothing compared to his plays. And some of the same people are in the movies that were in the plays, but there's ad-libbing going on. It's hysterical. All of his plays are hysterical. So I would definitely encourage you to check those out on video. You can still find them on video, but his plays, when they're in big theaters and it's live, those are really fun, and you really see the talent. And he uses a lot of the local people. He uses a lot of his friends. He's very loyal. He's given a lot of people their start. And so, definitely. He's definitely someone that I would love to get to know and to have on the show. This favorite hack, life hack, business hack, or advice, either way, however you want to say it.
I say it all the time, and I probably say it all the time because I'm saying it for me. And I've actually already referenced it once on this show. Um, your calendar is your friend. I don't think it matters if you are a CEO of a Fortune 500 company or if you run a two-person startup. If you don't have control of your calendar, and if you don't list everything that you need to do on your calendar, you're going to spiral out of control. Any person who's in leadership has to map out everything they do in order to be effective.
Absolutely. Well, my favorite piece of advice is never play leapfrog with a unicorn. Very good advice. Secondly, my favorite hack, or I guess I just learned this in the last year, and it was somebody I had on my podcast mentioned this. It was an athletic director, but piggybacking on your calendar idea, that's kind of the master, what gets on your calendar. But I used to do all my phone calls at an hour. They were hour-long increments. So when people scheduled, so if you schedule a call with me, it's a 1-hour call.
Mm-hmm.
I have made those 45 minutes now. That way it gives me a 15-minute buffer. That way, when people are scheduling, even if I have back-to-backs, I still have a buffer. That way, if the call goes long, or if I have to use the restroom, or if I have to make some notes before my next call, because I was getting so crammed where I would have days where I had 5 or 6 calls in a row and I was never getting notes done, or I was never doing what I needed to do. And so at the end of the day, I'd be like, oh, what was that second call? Or when I talked to Ruston, what was that I was supposed to do in follow up? And so just putting that buffer in, whatever your scheduler is, I use Calendly. It's not necessarily the best, but it works for me. I enjoy it, and it works well for me, Calendly. And I schedule everything for 45 minutes at a time.
Yeah. I need to do that. I'm bad about, I think when you're like common knowledge approach is you schedule an hour for a meeting and it's kind of everybody else's expectation. You kind of subconsciously just do that because you think that's what they want. The reality is that 45-minute concept might actually help them too.
Well, there's some people right now screaming at the video, or at their, or just thinking in their head, shaking their head. It's like, why do you even have to have an hour call? Why do you have to have a 45-minute call? You should have shorter calls. And if that's for you, that's fine. It depends on what your industry is. Maybe you have different scheduling tools or different time limits for different people.
Yeah.
For me and what I do a lot of times, we're going to do more of a deep dive, or I don't want to just get to the business and be transactional to start with. Now, I will say there's a certain part of my business. There's a certain component of my business where I'm doing some screening calls. If I'm doing the screening calls, those are scheduled actually those are 15 to 20-minute calls, and it's very business, but that's a separate component to my business. For most of the calls, they're going to be 45 minutes. But what that also does is, let's say I don't know Ruston very well, or whatever. Now Ruston gets that alert. It's a 45-minute call. So now at 35 or 40 minutes, he already knows in his mind it's a 45-minute call. If it's a buddy of mine like Ruston, you know what? It's okay if we went an hour, that's fine. But for somebody that I don't know, or maybe I don't want to be on that call, instead of the secretary, having to buzz in the old, the stereotypical, hey, buzz me at this time or whatever, they already know, hey, it's only going to be a 45-minute call, but you set up what works for you. But the point of that whole thing is I was doing hour calls and it was killing me because it was getting too back to back. I was going over on too many calls. Or you end up starting, your scheduler then starts scheduling calls at 1:10 or 1:05, weird times as well. But so I didn't mention this in our pre-show notes, but sports prediction. I figured I wanted to get off the cuff. Sports prediction. I want a real sports prediction from you, and then I want a Fantasyland sports prediction. So I already know the Fantasyland that Tennessee will win a national championship.
Mm-mm.
No. Okay. So give me your real sports prediction for 2023 and your fantasy world, fantasy land prediction.
So my brother and I actually do a fun podcast called the Vol Bros. And we actually did our way too early predictions for 2023 last week.
Yep.
So my real prediction is I believe that the University of Tennessee will go 11-1 in football. They will
Woo.
make the college football playoffs. I'm not going to go so far as to say they're going to win it, because until somebody beats Georgia, it's going to be Georgia. But I do believe they'll make the playoffs and they'll go 11-1 in the regular season. My fantasy land prediction is that Alabama goes 0-12.
They have to forfeit every game that Nick Saban gets in trouble for rules violation. And
Exactly.
yeah, that would be fantasy land. So is Joe Milton winning the Heisman? Is that more fantasy or more real?
That's neither. The national media will never allow anyone from the state of Tennessee to win the Heisman, because the fans have alienated so many of them. They intentionally vote against them.
Except, yeah, you're still bitter about Charles Woodson deservedly winning the Heisman over Peyton Manning.
No, that was fine. That was a coin toss.
Coin toss.
I'm more just irately mad over the fact that the number one quarterback in America statistically, who also won SEC Player of the Year, did not get invited to New York. Not only did he not win, which he should have won, he didn't even get invited. And again, if you want to see what I'm talking about that media stuff, there are voters. You know, every voter has to submit their voting ballot. There are voters that had Hendon Hooker anywhere from 15th to 25th on their ballot. The SEC Player of the Year? No. If you look at who those voters were and look at their mentions, there's a lot of Tennessee fans in their mentions who were giving them all kinds of crap before that vote ever happened. Dan Walken, looking at you. You know, and those, you know, they hold a grudge. They're humans. So I don't believe any Tennessee athlete will ever win the Heisman because the media is already against them.
Well, my real fantasy prediction, or my real sports prediction is kind of a silly one, but it's fresh on my mind. But I can pretty much guarantee that Jim Harbaugh will be mentioned not only in the next week for every opening in the NFL, but next year as well, because he's been rumored for the last 2 years or 3 years for every job that comes open in the NFL. So as long as he's at Michigan, Jim Harbaugh, Coach Khaki, will be rumored for every NFL opening, it seems like.
A friend of mine posted the other day when it came out that Jim Harbaugh said that he was open to interviewing for the, I guess it was the Panthers job. A friend of mine posted, "I'm open to interviewing for the Cincinnati Reds job."
Yeah, sometimes I want to put out on Twitter or something, you know, I can neither confirm nor deny that I have interest or that I've been contacted for whatever job. My fantasy, this is just my wish, but I'm a huge golf fan, huge Tiger Woods fan. I would love to see Tiger Woods win the Masters again. And I would love to see him, you know, that's for 2023. But I would love to see him win a couple more majors and break Jack Nicklaus, even though Jack Nicklaus is a legend. I would love to see Tiger Woods, you know, his dominance in sports is on the Mount Rushmore, what he's been able to do, especially considering he's been hurt for so long. And a great portion of his career was taken away by being injured. But yeah, I'd love to see Tiger Woods win the Masters.
It'd be really cool to see him have like a Nolan Ryan type rebirth where, you know, not only does he come back, but he comes back even better than he was before.
Yeah, well, he just won the Masters a couple of years ago in an amazing, you know, nobody expected that whatsoever.
Right.
So he could do it, but the thing probably, obviously he's a couple of years older, but he also had the car accident last year. So he's what, 16, 17, 18 months removed from that car accident where he almost
Yeah.
lost his legs. So, that's an added thing when you consider he's 47, I think 46, 47, right in there. So,
Yeah.
well, this has been fun. Hopefully you as an audience, you've maybe thought of some of these things, not necessarily what we've said, but hey, what's your goal? Does your goals have substance? What do you want to do this next year? And, we joke about, hey, I'd love to have Tyler Perry on the podcast. Yeah, certainly. I've reached out to his management or his agency, but that's never going to happen. But are there some realistic things that you can do to achieve some of the things that you're wanting to achieve this year? And you never know. So I encourage you guys, everyone listening to this, watching this, have a plan of attack, figure out, some of these things are fun to think about, but maybe some of these things you actually can have substance to and put some teeth to it. And it's not just bark, but it's bite as well. So Ruston, any final parting thoughts as we wrap up this show, but begin 2023?
I think Jamy just made a public ask if anyone has the ability to get Tyler Perry on the podcast. He would love to talk to you.
Yeah, that would be nice. So, but why are we selling ourselves short? Hey, Tyler, I know you watched this. This is your dirty little secret that you watched the show. But hey, give me a call. Hit me up, Coach Bechler on Twitter. Direct messages slide into my DMs. They're open. Well, everybody, appreciate you watching. Once again, kindly hit the little like button, subscribe button, maybe even leave us a little 5-star. You could say, hey, Ruston's awesome. Wish he was the real host of this show, whatever you want to say, but leave a 5-star rating. We appreciate all that. But otherwise, join us next week. Same bat channel, same bat time, but we appreciate everybody watching this show. So for Ruston, for Jamy Bechler, we appreciate it. And until next time, remember that success is a choice. What choice will you make today?